Seals regretted stopping that old truck. 1 hour later, a 4-star general stepped out of a SUV. A beat-up pickup rattled down a quiet suburban street, its engine groaning with every turn. Red and blue lights flickered behind it. No one knew her story. No one imagined the history carried in the scars of her hands, or the quiet legacy behind the calm eyes staring straight ahead. The young Seals didn't expect resistance. Just another old truck, rust eating through the edges, dented like it had survived a dozen storms. Harris, the taller one, tapped the hood with a mocking grin. License, registration, or just another excuse, kid? The driver didn't glance up. Her hands gripped the wheel with quiet certainty, her hoodie sagging over worn shoulders. Emily Ward, 26, former Navy SEAL, civilian now, but her posture told another story. Every muscle measured, every breath controlled. She handed over her ID calmly. Harris squinted, leaned in, and snorted. Active duty? Sure, right. His partner whispered, smirking, looks like we caught ourselves a ghost. Emily said nothing, only let the engine hum beneath them. The street felt heavier, like time slowed. The sun beat down on chipped asphalt, highlighting the rust streaks and scratches on her truck, marks she earned building shelters, ramps, and hospitals under fire. And they didn't know any of it. Not yet. Harris flicked the laminated card, holding it between fingers, a subtle act of disrespect. His partner leaned close, loud enough for bystanders to hear. You hiding something in there, ghost? Emily's eyes never wavered from the horizon. Her truck bed rattled softly with the weight of lumber, bags of cement, and a carefully folded wheelchair ramp. She had spent the morning fixing a neighbor's porch, free of charge, no fanfare. The Seals circled her vehicle, their boots crunching gravel. Every dent, every mark, spoke a language they couldn't read. Syria 2020, Yemen 2022, places their reports barely acknowledged. The taller one gestured toward the truck bed. Step over here, ma'am. His tone carried mockery, a test of ego. Emily moved slowly, deliberately. Years of war taught her patience was sharper than any blade. She understood threats didn't always come from bullet. Silence, measured steps, and a calm presence could disarm even the most aggressive. And she knew she was already being measured, analyzed, misjudged. Jones, the younger SEAL, picked up a worn carpenter's hammer from the bed. He tapped it lightly against his palm, a condescending rhythm that echoed in the midday heat. Tools like this, useful for more than construction, huh? Emily's knuckles whitened slightly, her only betrayal of emotion. Her hands bore the story of decades. Calluses from rebuilding hospitals under fire, shelters after floods, ramps for veterans who couldn't navigate their homes. Her posture didn't change, but her mind calculated precise, non-lethal responses if provoked further. The SEALs didn't notice the subtle tension, the silent discipline trained over years in extreme conditions. Emily's quiet presence was more formidable than their badges, more powerful than their arrogance. She exhaled slowly, letting the heat and scrutiny settle over her. They were missing the truth staring them in the face. This wasn't a civilian. This was someone who had survived chaos and come out unbroken, but invisible to the world. Harris flipped through her pocket contents. Wallet, keys, a small notebook filled with names, operators, stars, some crossed out. What's this? A code? Emily replied softly. Names of people I served with. He tossed the notebook back carelessly. The SEALs saw a young woman with a truck. She carried an entire history of service in her hands, in her scars, in her truck's dents. A small silver pin glinted in the sun, tucked in her visor. Navy Cross. Harris snorted, dismissing it as a trinket. But anyone who recognized its weight would understand. Extraordinary heroism, sacrifice far beyond their understanding, condensed in a pin smaller than a fingernail. Emily didn't flinch. Her gaze lowered, not in submission, but in quiet contempt for the ignorance surrounding her. Around them, neighbors slowed, phones recording, whispering guesses. No one knew they were witnessing a living legend, hidden in plain sight. Minutes crawled. Passers-by assumed trouble, a confused young woman caught in bureaucracy. A teen snapped selfies, laughing, uploading the scene online. "Kids in trouble," he captioned it, unaware of the weight carried in her silence. One older man, Mike Henderson, gas station clerk, recognized her instantly. Years of watching heroes pass quietly had taught him discernment. He approached, hands raised in calm appeal. "She's helping people, sir. She's a real hero." Harris, tense and rigid, dismissed him aggressively. Mike retreated, eyes locked on Emily, silently promising she wouldn't face this alone. Emily simply waited, her breathing steady, patience honed from operations that demanded unwavering focus. She was calm, but beneath that calm, a storm of history, sacrifice, and resilience waited quietly, ready to reveal its full measure to anyone patient enough to see it. The SEALs lounged by the curb, coffee in hand, pretending authority while the summer heat shimmered off asphalt. Emily sat on the edge of the sidewalk, shadows stretched long, quiet as if carved from the very air around her. People slowed, curious, but none recognized the hero in their midst. The truck's engine ticked softly, an obedient companion, carrying decades of silent valor. Emily's thoughts drifted, tracing back to mornings waking before dawn to repair field hospitals, evenings spent patching up war-torn villages. A life measured in small, invisible acts. The young operators assumed boredom, but she knew patience was a weapon sharper than any blade. Every glance from her was a calm assessment, every breath a meditation on control. She wasn't intimidated. She was invisible, unassailable, yet weighted with the kind of experience that demanded respect. Around her, the world hummed in ignorance, and she let it. The tension wasn't her doing. It belonged to those who didn't understand the quiet legends walking among them. Mike Henderson lingered nearby, shifting uneasily between civility and urgency. He had seen Emily before, decades ago, guiding volunteers after hurricane floods, teaching young veterans carpentry, rebuilding broken homes silently. "They don't know who they're dealing with," he muttered under his breath. A crowd had gathered, whispers swelling into murmurs, assumptions painting her as obstinate or unstable. Emily didn't respond. She let the stillness do the talking. Every inch of her presence carried decades of training, courage, and sacrifice, invisible to those who judged by badges, uniforms, or a smirk. The SEALs were confident, yet unease began to creep in, subtle, almost imperceptible, as Harris squinted at her ID again, double-checking against the system. The deeper they dug, the less they understood. Mike's quiet hope clung to her like a lifeline, a reminder that sometimes recognition didn't come from authority. It came from someone who had truly seen. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Jones joked about her cooperation, while flipping through the notebook, misreading heroism as deception. "Maybe she's forgotten who she is," he laughed, oblivious. Emily's silence, her slow, deliberate movements, were interpreted as confusion. They didn't notice the muscles in her hands, once trained to save lives under impossible conditions, now resting calmly on the wheel. Every scar, every callus, every wrinkle in the leather of her steering wheel told a story they would never read. They constructed a narrative in their minds. Unregistered vehicle, uncooperative female, possible criminal. Meanwhile, Emily's reality was quiet service, decades of unseen heroism, and small acts that shifted entire communities. She sat, calm as ever, letting them reveal their own ignorance. And yet, even in the shadow of misjudgment, the truth lingered, waiting for the one person who could finally acknowledge it. The wind shifted, carrying a subtle warning. A black SUV appeared around the corner, tinted windows reflecting the sun. Both SEALs stiffened instinctively, a respect they couldn't name. The vehicle rolled to a stop, engine low and steady, doors closed with quiet authority. For the first time, Emily's gaze flicked to the approaching figure. She remained seated, calm, but inside, decades of discipline sharpened her attention. Harris and Jones stood quickly, alert, unsure. This wasn't just another check. Something had shifted. The SUV's door opened, and the form of a tall man in immaculate four-star uniform emerged. The midday heat rippled, the asphalt shimmering like a canvas waiting for the moment of revelation. Silence stretched between the actors in this street drama. Emily's stillness contrasted perfectly with the sudden tension. The legend she had always been, unseen, was about to intersect with the recognition it deserved. The four-star general's eyes scanned the scene calmly, immediately pinpointing the source of the disturbance. Harris stepped forward, instinctively puffing his chest, attempting authority, but faltering under the measured gaze of someone who had seen decades of real service. "Which of you stopped this woman?" the general asked, voice precise, deliberate. The air thickened. Emily remained seated, shadow stretching long, posture perfect, stillness unbroken. Around them, the crowd leaned forward, sensing the shift, unaware of the decades of courage that hung silently in the warm air. Mike Henderson's nod, almost imperceptible, met her eyes, a quiet promise kept. The young operators froze, realizing, though unsure how, that they were witnessing a living legend. One question, 6 words, and years of misjudgment, assumptions, and ignorance hung suspended. The world had just caught a glimpse of the truth hiding in plain sight. Harris and Jones exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of realization pressing down. The street seemed to still around them, even the passing traffic felt muted. Emily sat quietly, hands folded over her worn steering wheel, eyes steady, calm, but inside, decades of survival and sacrifice simmered like embers beneath ice. The four-star general approached slowly, boots echoing against the asphalt. His gaze swept over her truck, the dents, the tools, and the subtle silver navy cross glinting under the sun. Each detail spoke volumes of a life lived in service, unnoticed, uncelebrated. The SEAL's previous arrogance faded under the quiet authority in his voice. "You just stopped the woman who trained me," he said, 6 words that hit like a thunderclap. In that moment, the absurdity of the misunderstanding, the misjudgment of heroism, and the arrogance of youth collapsed into shameful silence. The crowd whispered, awed, slowly understanding, not every hero wears medals on their chest. Some carry them invisibly, in scars, in calluses, in quiet deeds. And today, the world would witness one. Emily finally looked up, meeting the general's eyes. A flicker of acknowledgement, subtle and human, softened the intensity of the moment. She hadn't sought recognition, never had, yet the simple truth of being seen, of her decades of quiet heroism recognized, brought a deep exhale of relief. The young SEALs straightened awkwardly, color rising in their faces. What had seemed like authority, control, and judgment evaporated in the presence of lived experience. Mike Henderson stepped forward, pride shining quietly, offering a nod that bridged the gap between ordinary life and extraordinary truth. Around them, the crowd held its collective breath. They saw not a chaotic scene, but the revelation of a woman whose life had been a testament to courage, humility, and relentless service. Emily's truck, once dismissed as old and broken, now became a symbol, not of status or power, but of quiet strength, of decades of unseen heroism that had finally stepped into the light. Harris swallowed hard, realizing the weight of his mistakes. Jones fidgeted, tracing the hammer he had held moments ago, now a reminder of misjudgment. They had approached authority with arrogance, only to be humbled by someone who had lived, fought, and sacrificed beyond their comprehension. The four-star general's gaze lingered on them, patient but unyielding. "Remember this moment," he said, voice soft but firm. "Not all power is visible, not all heroes wear what you expect. Some teach lessons in silence." The sun dipped slightly, shadows stretching, as Emily remained seated, calm, absorbing the acknowledgement without fanfare. In the quiet aftermath, she allowed herself the tiniest smile, not for herself, but for all the unseen acts that had built lives, saved communities, and created legacies invisible to those too busy to see. Around her, the street returned to ordinary motion, but nothing would feel ordinary again. The SUV door closed with quiet authority. The general gave one last nod before stepping back inside, leaving a lingering gravity in his wake. Harris and Jones, chastened and reflective, retreated to their vehicle, leaving Emily in her pickup. The crowd dispersed slowly, whispers fading, phones lowering, as if collectively realizing that ordinary appearances could conceal extraordinary truths. Emily started her engine, a soft hum breaking the silence, and drove slowly down the street, every bump in the road resonating like a heartbeat of past struggles and present recognition. She carried her small acts of kindness, her secret heroism, and her humility forward, as she always had, quietly, invisibly, with unwavering dedication. Emily turned onto the open road, her pickup rattling gently, tires crunching gravel. She thought of the ramps built, the hospitals repaired, the lives quietly saved, all without fanfare, all without notice. The world had seen a glimpse of her truth today, yet she didn't need applause. True heroism, she reflected, is measured in patience, perseverance, and the lives touched silently along the way. The sun dipped low, casting golden light over the truck, painting scars as badges of honor. Emily drove on, ordinary in appearance but extraordinary in spirit, a living reminder that some legends walk quietly among us, teaching humility, courage, and quiet strength without ever saying a word. If this story moved you, pause for a moment and honor the quiet heroes around you, the ones who serve without recognition. Remember to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon to share more stories of ordinary people carrying extraordinary courage. Their silence speaks louder than words.